Hi, everyone. I have such a treat for you today, and I'm so excited for the NeuroLive today because I have someone really special with me today, Christie, who is one of my certified facilitators who works with people individually with the Neurocycle, who's a neurocycler herself. She's joining us today to just talk about her story and also to talk about one of the top problems that she sees people battling with and that she works with individually, and that's body image. And I think this is like so topical, Christie. Well, I'm so excited to have you. Welcome to this NeuroLive, and I can't wait to dive in.
Oh, I'm excited to be here.
Well, Christie, everyone's got a backstory. And how did you get to where you are now and doing what you're doing now and being a neurocycle facilitator?
Oh, yes. So this is really one of my favorite stories to tell. But it didn't start off so good. So about 10 years ago, I was in a really dark spot. There was a series of events that kind of led up to that. There was a miscarriage, a failed adoption. My husband was in a near fatal motorcycle accident. And I also had 6 kids under the age of 16. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I was just struggling. And I really recognized the signs that I wasn't in a good place. And I went to a counselor. And unfortunately, that was not a good experience for me. And actually, I tell this story a lot. I wound up yelling at the counselor and walking out because I was just did not feel like I was being heard, did not feel like I was really progressing. And I just knew that there was something better out there. And so I literally went online and I Googled, how do I heal? How do I heal a broken heart? And just through a series of searches, I came across your videos on YouTube, how to detox your brain. And I was immediately captivated. That was 10 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And
wow.
Yes. And so the research now is there's so much more to it than I ever thought or imagined. So, going through that and really figuring out, how do I heal myself? And then coming out of that, it was probably around 2012, 13, and then 2017, because I'd been doing all of this hard work of healing my mind and my body actually crashed.
Oh, wow.
And I
can't believe it.
Yes, because I'd been doing a lot of hard work, and now I know why it crashed. But in 2017, my body crashed and I had a lot of health scares. There was one thing after another. There was some major diagnosis they were throwing at me, but nothing, they couldn't find anything. And really looking back, I was really probably in the midst of adrenal fatigue. I was tapped out. And because of all of these things, I, of course, came across your work and I became a life coach to help other people through it. And then 2 years ago, became a Neurocycle Facilitator. As soon as I saw that was available to me online, I signed up. I think I was within 2 hours of getting the email.
One of the first to sign up.
Yes. And then after that, I became a functional nutrition counselor as well, just to incorporate the healing that comes with the mind and the body and how they go together. So
Absolutely.
that's a little bit of my backstory.
That's amazing. So you went through some extensive training and you've did a whole lot of work yourself. You have to, becoming a facilitator, you had to go through the process of the Neurocycle. Now you've been through healing, you've been through counseling, what is different about what would you say, what's your experience, what's different about doing the Neurocycle process?
Oh my goodness. The Neurocycle is results. And that's what I always tell my clients, that there are real results that you really see. And, and there's a time and place for counseling. And sometimes some of my clients I refer, and you might need to go see a counselor. But most of the time, what I'm really working with my clients on is what are the results you want to see and where do you want to be? And I see it. I mean, sometimes you can even see it in the countenance in their face, that their face is different.
Yeah.
So it's life-changing and it's real.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I mean, that's why I do what I do, and why I ended up doing the app so we could reach more people, because it's so self-empowering. And we're not saying don't go for the counseling, don't go for the therapy, but what it's doing is helping you to know what you need counseling for, and also empowering you to help yourself through the moments, because you can't be with a counselor 24/7. You're with yourself 24/7. So to get our mind under control is just so important. Have you found that working with people, what is one of the sort of main comments that they say in terms of the whole mind-brain-body connection and learning about the mind driving everything, and just that whole experience that they have?
Yes. So a lot of the times, especially working with women, is that when the image or the topic of body comes up, that is such a sore subject for so many women, because we have, of course, we can talk about social media, we can talk about just the media in general, and the communication that's given to us as women that we should look a certain way. And if we don't measure up, then we don't have value. And so many times there's that communication comes to us as small children, and we carry that for the rest of our lives.
Decades, yeah.
Yes. And then not only that, then there's, some women who've had traumatic events happen to their body that they have to deal with as well. So this body subject is something that you really, a lot of times when we're in traditional counseling situations, we don't really address that. And that's one of the other things I love about the Neurocycle is we really talk about what is your body telling you, because the body is a great source of information.
Absolutely.
And we're not taught how to tap into that well.
No, we aren't. And, I'm so glad you brought it up like that. And we're going to dive in a bit more to the body image concept, because it's so interesting that you confirm what I think every woman who's listening, and even so many males as well. And
yes,
so
absolutely.
that the body image is a huge issue. It's just such a lot of pressure. There's so many eating disorders. People hide it. There's orthorexia as well, where they overdo it on the other side and all kinds of stuff. But it's just important to recognize. I love how you said to recognize the body is telling us stuff. And we know Bessie van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps a Score, really revolutionized this whole thing. But this is not new. Way long before there was Candace Pert talking about this. And for thousands of years, we've understood that there's the mind-brain-body connection. The mind is embodied. The mind is driving us. And there's the messy mind that is just caught up in our day-to-day life. And then there's our wisdom, our wise mind. And the Neurocycle is really helping us to tap into that wisdom, to look at where things are getting entangled in our body. Just the other day, Christian, I'm going to hand over to you to just walk us through and just talk more about body image and the kinds of problems that your clients have experienced and how you've helped resolve and so on. But I was thinking the other day of an analogy, and it's like it was my granddaughter's first birthday, and we were blowing up balloons, and I thought that is such a great analogy, because here we are, these huge spiritual beings, and for a period of time we get put into these physical bodies, and that we need those physical bodies functioning. And if they get messy, if the brain gets entangled networks and the body gets entangled networks from life's experiences, that does block the ability of the mind's got to work through something that is not functioning as well. And so we've got to be able to tap into that wisdom that's outside the balloon in order to fix the balloon that's now got little bumps and lumps and things all over it. So we can't, it's mind, brain, and body, and that's what we've tried to incorporate with the Neurocycle. So I'd love you to maybe comment on that, and then let's dive in a little deeper to the sorts of body image issues and why that's become a topical thing. Because when I reached out to all of my facilitators and I said, what's a main area that's problematic? Christie very quickly said back to me, for those of you that are watching and listening, that body image is huge. So let's talk a bit more. If you could just comment on the whole mind, brain, body connection a little bit, and then let's talk about why you've selected, why you think that that's such a big issue, and talk a bit more about body image.
Yes. Well, I think part of it is we have these misunderstandings, or we have these miscommunication in our society, is that we either have to ignore what our body is telling us, that, our body is bad. I mean, in some traditions, some
religions.
Some religion, we have to deny everything about our body. So we have to cut off those sensations, or cut off even good desires.
Yeah.
And then there's this other extreme where the body is everything, and we have to make sure we're satisfying all of the cravings, and the body has to be, it's almost idolized.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have these big extremes in our society. And where is the healthy balance of all of that?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we balance and use it for good, where we're using the information that our body is giving us for our healing, and also tapping into the body to heal our minds, to really, again, use that information to heal all of us. Because I think we like to compartmentalize things. We like to say, yes, our mind is here and our body is here and our spirit is here. And you can't separate them all. But if you really tap into this beautiful creation that we are, that if we use all of these pieces to really come together and just live a well life.
That can really help. Yeah. No, that's such a good explanation. So body image, you were so quick to respond. So, okay, so this is a big deal. So are most of so why is this, what are people saying? What are the clients that you're working with saying?
Well, I think part of it was, there's some of that is in me, as a teenager, I was anorexic, and even told that even as thin as I was at that time, it was still not thin enough. And this idea of not good enough.
Unless you're thin.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then I want to say 90 to 95% of my clients, that comes up every time on their neurocycle is,
wow,
I hate my body. I don't know how to take care of my body. My body is bad. I don't know what's healthy or not. I mean, almost everyone.
Wow.
That has come up. Yes.
And is it coming up straight away? Because you first got to initially find the thing that like the main area that you're working on, which is what you work on with them over a 9-week cycle, or 10 weeks, basically. Is that coming up immediately as they identify the thought, or is there something else and then that comes up? How is it happening?
Well, I think sometimes for some women, they're very clear, and I say women only because that's what I've been working with. So this does not mean that men do not have this issue at all. So I should say,
absolutely, people.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I say that. But for some, they're very clear. I hate my body, and they're they understand that. For others, it may be they're working on that thought of I'm not good enough, and then when they get to that body image, or that body piece that we kind of dive into, then we start unpacking some things there. And so it can be either way.
Okay. So the I'm not good enough comes up a lot too.
Yes.
And then it's very often linked, so that body image has society standards, even though there's so much around in the last, 4 or 5 years, there's been such a move towards healthy at any size, and, all this body positivity, it's still an issue.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because we still are, I think we're slow, our culture's slow to adapt to things, but also it's really, we can sell things if we tell you you're not good enough.
That's true.
There's a marketing component to that as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do a little day one of a neurocycle. But before we do that, can you just explain how you work with your clients over a 10-week period, and why the 10 weeks? And then start with that, and then I've got a couple other questions before we dive into actually an example.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, how I work is I usually meet by Zoom. And we work for 10 weeks. The first week is really diving in to find that, what is that? I always say, what's the driving thought that led you here? What are we really looking at? And it's about an hour session. I really try to get to that point. And then on that first session, I try to do our first day together so that they can have something to start off with. I usually try on that first day we start thinking about that active reach so that they can have a baseline. And I always tell them that, hey, this active reach is going to evolve and morph as you go. And then I meet once a week. and we go through each day that they have gone through it. There's lots of questions. I look over the metacog. We kind of refine that active reach. Is this really where we want to go? And try to do it in the positive and not the negative, and things like that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
so each of the clients, just so that everyone knows, every client is doing the Neurocycle. So the facilitation, the certified facilitation is an option. And that's why you'll find all our certified facilitators who've gone through extensive training. You'll find them inside the app and also at the website as well. You can find Christie's profile and our other facilitators' profiles. So your clients are on the app. And what you do is on day 1, you get them going, then they go off and they do days 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and they come back basically on day 8. And then you talk about that week's work and you've got a whole process. And then they go back and they carry on day 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You meet on day 14. And that's kind of how it goes through up until the end of the session. So now let's track. So I'm going to now take you through the 10 weeks and ask you, and I know this is pulling together a lot of different clients and so on, and your own experience. What are you seeing from day 1 through day 7? What's a major, what is the experience on day 1, and then what's the experience on day 7?
Yes. So day 1, of course, there's a lot of trepidation. There's a lot of people are kind of, I say, cautiously guarded, and that's okay, because people usually come to that day 1 in pain, and that's why. And I'm glad they're here. So I understand that. And I try to be as gentle as I can. And so that day 1, people are a little bit guarded. Day 7, they come and they've done a lot of work on that first week, and they're a little more open. They're a little more hopeful, and they are starting to really understand the process. I usually use the analogy of riding the bike, that they're kind of pedaling slowly and I'm walking along beside them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Day 14 and day 21. What do you find at day? Because that's where we've done, because the first 3 weeks are where you deconstruct and reconstruct. So there's a lot of rebuilding. There's a lot of rewiring of those neural networks and the neural bundles, and all the twisted up trees or the twisted up neural microtubules are all starting to have been basically unwound and rebuilt. But it's this, you've got your tiny new network. So what are you seeing at day 21?
So day 21, I see it's kind of a mixed bag. So a lot of times, because those first 3 weeks, I always tell them just hold on for those first 3 weeks, because those first 3 weeks can be pretty intense and pretty hard. There's ups and downs, and so there's some celebrations in there, but they've done such hard work, and so I usually celebrate them that the hard work that they have done, and then there's also again, we're starting off a new section after that, so there's again a little bit of caution, but they feel more confident in the process because they've gone through that hard work, and now from that 20 on, I always say, okay, this is where we find the gold.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. And so do you find that there's a potential at day 21 for people to think, I've got it, I'm fine, I don't need to carry on? The danger zone, because they feel different. They feel like they've got this. They know where it's come from. They've identified the root. They've reconstructed. They've accepted. And do you find that? And how do you manage that?
Yes. So day 21, usually I talk with them and say, you've done a lot of hard work, but you need to keep going. And I use the analogy that you gave us, that we've just trimmed everything back. And if we don't plant something in, then everything's going to grow back. And I usually prepare them up until that day 21, and then just encourage them, okay, just get through the next week. Just one more week until you talk to me. And really let them know that now is where the growth is just going to be amazing, and how far they have come, or remind them how far they've come, and for them to know that the growth that they're going to see in the next week is going to be more.
And do you find that after that, once they've gone through that first 21 days, that second 6 weeks, do you find that a difference there? What is it? What is that difference?
After like day 42?
After day 21. So once they go into phase 2.
Yes. So that day 20, what I see the difference is they have so much clarity about their toxic thought and where it came from. And they have more clarity about where they're going. And that's what's really fun, is for them to kind of see that aha moment of I know where this has come from and I know where I want to go. The problem is with 21, we think, okay, I'm done. We can, I don't need you anymore. And so I try to really caution them, okay, just do one more week. Just one more week. Yeah.
To keep them going and then to keep them going after that, because that's where we stabilize the thought. Otherwise,
Yes.
basically, it just shrinks and becomes something tiny, and then you don't have behavior change, and it's frustrating. And so have you had clients that have stopped and it has been frustrating and then they've come back?
Yes. I've had some clients that just after 21 days, they're just gone. And I have had a couple clients come back and say, okay, I think I need to start over. And we start over with the same thought.
And work through it and it goes quicker.
Yes.
Okay, so now what I'd love to do is to come back to body image and see if you can track through before we do day one. Or you could do day one. You could do it two ways. I'd like them to experience it. So we're going to focus now on the example of body image. We've given sort of a general overview of the process. And I didn't get past day 42 and 63 all the other days because I wanted to do it with an example. And so we're going to do the body image thing. And if you can give us, I know it's maybe this is specific to a particular client, that's memories coming up in your head of that, whatever, however you want to do it. But I know you've prepared day one. I'd love you to then tell us, track for us, not in absolute depth. You don't have to do a neurocycle at each of the 10 points, but if you can more or less say how that changed over the different time points. Mm-hmm. So let's start with day one. Mm-hmm. Take us through the neurocycle as though we're your client and we are coming to you with a body image and you're not taking us through that day one. It's day one. Mm-hmm. And then we'll track through the next days in a simple way.
Yes. So I don't know if you can see that on my board. I started day one with this one here, and it's kind of a mixture. It's actually one of the ones that I used during training for me when we had to go through the neurocycle ourselves.
So it's your one.
So this is one of mine. And I had done my body's faulty and broken because of the health issues that I had gone through. And so for me, what I did is I started talking about emotions, and my emotions were I was disappointed, I was scared, I was frustrated. There was a lot of hopelessness, and I just felt broken. And so you can see here on this right here, I have emotions, and I've listed these out. That the disappointed, scared, frustrated, hopeless, broken. And I usually tell my clients is we, especially that first day, mm-hmm. You don't have to write a novel. We're just kind of brainstorming, and we're just kind of that first gut thing that comes at you, we're just writing it down. And a lot of times with some of my clients, as they're kind of telling me their story, I'm writing notes as well so that I can come back and visit that, remind, okay, what did you mean by this? Mm. And so I'm kind of coaching them and writing along beside them.
Perfect.
And then the body, as I went through this, I put drained. There's a lot of shoulder tension. There was headaches, and I was sleeping a lot. And again, with the body, when we hit that body section, there's two things that happen. One is women or my clients usually just start telling me all these things with their body. And then there's sometimes people say, I don't have anything. There's nothing.
So interesting.
Yes, because they have, in a way, have dissociated from the sensations of their body, is they have just cut them off. And that usually emerges later on. But for day one, suppressed. Yes, it's been suppressed. And so I just say, what is your gut saying? What is that first thought that comes to your mind? Because we really are practicing on that first day of putting things down on paper. And also, it's not wrong. Whatever they say is not wrong. And that's what I always tell my clients as well, is put that gut thing on there. And it may not make sense right now, but it'll make sense later. So really, that's, again, letting them, helping them learn to trust themselves in the process too.
Love that.
Yes.
And then you get the next one, yeah?
Yes, the behaviors. And again, this is sometimes really easy for people that they go, oh, yeah, I did this and this and this. But when we're talking about our body, is then a lot of times we're talking about overeating or undereating, over-exercising, under-exercising, but then also withdrawing and guarding our energy. And so that's what I put. I was really guarding.
Can you read them out, Christie? Because it's a little hard to read. Then there's a light shining. And if I look to the side, everyone, if I'm looking to the side, it's because I've got a monitor close by and I can't see, my eyes aren't good enough to see the monitor in front of me. So I'm just glancing at these on the side.
Yes.
But if you can read those out to us. So this, by the way, is the gather awareness step, everyone. So I'm sure they're aware. You're gathering awareness of the 4 signals. Okay.
Yes. So it's guarding, withdrawing, isolating, ignoring.
And that's what you were doing on day 1.
Yes. Yes, I had my behavior. And funny enough, I didn't even realize that I was guarding my energy until I started diving into it.
Amazing.
And then the next one is the MPA, or the multiple perspective advantage, where we're building the origin story through here. And this was, for me, as a teenager, as I mentioned, the anorexia, that I was anorexic, and then I put still not thin enough, and then not good enough.
So you saw that on day 1.
Yes, I was shocked that came out so quickly.
So quickly, yeah, because that is very quick. So that's so you got your perspective from the past, and you saw how. So what are the other branches? What have you put there? Just carry on.
Child. I had a lot of sickness as a child.
Okay, so tie that into, so that's your perspective. So you went to teenagerhood, you went to a child, and then because I know you've got to cast your mind back to 2 years ago when you started doing this. So how was that influencing your current perspective in that moment? Because you chose to work on that thought for your, literally for your exam. You actually did this over the 9 weeks. So how was that? So it was so fascinating that on day 1, you already saw the root coming from your past and your childhood being sick. How was that influencing your present perspective?
Yes. So my body is faulty and broken because I was sick as a child. I had a lot of sickness as a child that there's so many things that, in those early years that stay in our mind that we don't realize are still there. And so because I just remember my mom talking about how sick I was, and I had started to believe that my body was there was just something wrong. My body was broken. Yes.
So that was an overarching perspective that went into adulthood, and on day 1, you kind of captured that and kind of isolated that. And all right, so now fast forward to what else? Okay, I think you've got your active reach. Okay, so then you gathered awareness, and then you reflected so when you reflected, so we've kind of jumped. Okay, so you gathered awareness. What were your reflections on that day?
On day 1 is my reflection was, I didn't think this was going anywhere. To be quite honest, I was like, okay, this is nice. I've done so much work in the past, and I just didn't think it was going anywhere. And so that was my reflection. But at the same time, I knew I wanted to deal with this. I wanted this to be gone. So that was my reflection. And then my right.
You created the metacog. Yeah, you created the metacog. So you're showing us from the metacog first. So when you gathered awareness, as you gathered awareness, were you kind of gathering, reflecting, and writing kind of at the same time? So gathered awareness of the first signal, wrote it down, and then reflected or reflect. How did you do it? How did you actually, this is what people ask a lot, because there's many ways that you can kind of flow through it.
Yes. So I usually tell my clients that the first 3 steps, they all kind of go together. And we naturally, I think for those of us that do this work, but also for those of us that come to this work, is we do a lot of reflection and analyzing already, that we tend to really think a lot. So this is
great, because it goes all over the place. This is a great way of organizing. So even though, because you're going back and reflecting on an experience that you worked through 2 years ago. So if someone comes in on the first day and you start asking them the questions, you basically write it down as they're telling you. So you're asking them the questions. What did you feel? You've gone through each of those signals. And so and you've captured them. So you're kind of doing the right step. You're gathering awareness and the right step. Then generally you ask them why and start getting more details. Is that your kind of flow. So if you're doing it on your own, how do you find the experience when you're doing it directly on your own in terms of that sequence daily?
Yes. Yes. So the gather and the write and the reflect, I really, they do flow together. And so a lot of times it's a gathering and it's, okay, I had these thoughts today. What were those thoughts again? Oh yeah, that's right. And why did I have those thoughts in there? So that's the reflect piece. And then the writing down. Okay, that's right. I did this.
And then you find you go back and gather a bit more and you kind of cycle between the three. So it's three distinct stages, but they tend to, you've got to gather first. You've got to start the process. And sometimes it's going to happen that, and I don't know if you've seen this with your clients, well, I know you have, that they gather, you literally have to say, okay, what are your emotions? What are your, and you literally ask them and say, okay, why do you think you've got them? Okay, let's write those down. So sometimes it's very distinct when you're working with someone and even on your own, that may be your experience. You may find that as you say, okay, what are my emotions? And then as you put them, as you think of those emotions, you may not want to forget them. So you may want to write them down immediately. So you write them down. You can write them straight onto the metacog. Sometimes people just write them in a linear form initially and then organize them onto the metacog. So there's different ways that you can do it. The thing is to make sure you follow all those 5 steps. And we're going to get to the, so let's now jump over to the recheck. Using your metacogs. And did you want to add anything on from the reflect? Is there anything, because this is day one, was there anything more on day one from the reflect, or do you find your reflect expands as you get to the further on along the cycle?
Yes. So the reflect actually, it builds. I always say this is almost like a concentric circle that, day one, we start here and we just work around and then it just builds on top of each other. And it's not, some people get really overwhelmed. Like, I show this was the end of my
at the end.
At the end. And so that it's very overwhelming for some people, but I always say, just take
building
one step, one day. That's it. And
every day
start small.
You start small. So every day is like a mini neurocycle and you're building towards it's a mini neurocycle, mini habit, and it's building towards the big thing. So that's fantastic. You showed us at the end point there. So let's quickly do a recheck for day one and a active reach for day one. And then I'm going to jump through a couple of the days. We won't do all of them. And we'll end off with the one, that metacog you showed at the end.
Oh, yes. So the recheck is, I really just stand back and say, is there anything else? That's what I always ask. Is there anything else? What else is happening? And I give myself a minute to look at it and say, is there something about this? Is there something about that sickness why did I think about that? And I use the word, what's behind this? What's really going on? Because that just gives you some tools to ask yourself those questions. Yeah. To get deeper. So, and then we go to the active reach.
And one question about the recheck or statement. Also, that's really excellent what you said. There's another thing that's helpful is this has happened. What can I do about it today in this moment? Because you remember we are not solving this body image issue that you've been dealing with for however many years on day one. You're just starting the process. You've already got quite far. So we're not expecting you to write reams on the first day. It really is just a few words. So your reflect might just be, if you can see that's pretty empty, the metacog there. It might be it might be that some of you are just doing the gather awareness in your head and the reflect in your head, and then you write it all down in the third step, and then you find you add more on, but it's not a lot on the first day. So on the recheck step, what's also important for us to remember is this is what's happened. What can I do about it? It's kind of like summarizing. What can I do about it today? Not for the future yet, because each day is today, and then they build to the future. So in terms of how you pull that together and this is what I can do. This is what's happened. What can I do today? How can I reconceptualize this today? Could you give an example of how if you can remember from day one of how the body image thing, how did you end your recheck? Because it would have led into the active reach, because the active reach builds out of the recheck. Yes. So the recheck for me is, what do I want this to look like? How do I want this to show up? What do I want to happen? Because that I think is kind of the amazing part of the neurocycle is we do dig in, but we don't stay here. And we don't stay where... Moving forward. Yes. Where do we want to go? And that's where the recheck is. I know that, yes, I was sick as a child, but that doesn't mean I have to carry that for the rest of my life.
and really reflecting on, what do I want?
That's great, to reach it. Where do you want to go? So that's like a summary. You've identified that you have these emotions as things come from childhood. You see your body as broken, and you want to change it. You don't want to stay in this place. So what was your active reach?
Yes,
day
so
one?
my active reach. So my active reach is, I always say with my clients, is my active reach is, it has to be in your words. So, as a facilitator, I don't say, okay, this is your active reach and this is what you have to do, because it really has to come from the client. And I always say it has to be in process, because if I just said, nope, I'm good, my body's great, then
it's not, that's a lie. Yeah. It's not
that. Yeah, my brain rejects that because of all of the evidence that I have built up. So I always say it's in process. So I use the ing words. So with my clients, I'll say, I am learning, or I am listening, or something like that, just to open the possibility of something new for our minds and our brains.
I love
it. I said, I'm listening to my body and what it needs.
Love
and so
that.
it's really simple. And in the beginning, it's really simple. I think with the active reach, and how I use that with my clients. And as we go through those days, then the active reach can get really wordy. And I think it was like 4 or 5 sentences long, midway through.
Yeah.
But then at the end, it's really concise, and it's gold. I call it the gold of the process.
I love what you just said there. I love it. And so give us the wordy version. Do you have an example of that there? How it tracked? And then give us the gold at the end. Just give us those. So the most wordy one, maybe probably around 21 days or 28 days. And then the one at the end.
Yes.
The gold.
Oh, goodness. I can't find it now, but I'll tell you my end one, because that's the one that is I still say it, is I'm amazed at what my body has done and is doing. I'm proud of me. I'm listening to me.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes. And is that actively showing up in your life? Has it made a change?
Absolutely. Without a doubt, because I say that all the time. I'm amazed at what my body has done and is doing, because when I look back and, I gave birth to these 4 beautiful children, we adopted 2 of them, and I've cared for them and taken care of them with my body. And I'm able to do this work and help people out with this body. And I'm taking care of this body well. And so I think that when I look and see this is taking place in my life.
That's amazing. It's showing up in your life. Okay, yes. Show us that Metacog, if you can hold it up to the camera. Show us one at day 63. And tell us how so daily you just kept adding. And then did you make was it one big Metacog you grew over 63 days, or was it multiple little ones and eventually?
I just did one. And so here is my I call it my overflow, but it started out, this is what it is.
So that's one for the 63 days.
For the 63 days, yep. And then came over, yes.
Beautiful. Yes. You can see that. So this is where the habit is building. One little tiny habit a day builds into the big habit, which is the change that shows up in our life. And the habit that you were changing was how you saw your body. So your big thing was you saw your body as broken. A lot of your clients are seeing their body, there's the whole, and you said you had anorexia, so you weren't good enough. Did that change? The I'm only good enough if I'm thin. Did that change over the 63 days? And how where are you at today?
Oh, yes.
In terms of that.
Yeah, in terms of that is, I'm taking care of myself well. I'm paying attention to my body signals. I'm working out at the gym 3 days a week and walking and running 2 or 3 days a week.
That's amazing.
And so not as a way of punishment, but as a way of I'm strengthening myself so that I can do this work too.
So I've heard you shift because I also remember talking with you about this, but I've heard you shift from feeling like you're not good enough from the whole childhood thing, and that you had to be thin to be accepted, and that was how your body would be healed, to accepting yourself and I'm hearing a lot of in you accepting that my body did this. Look what my body's done. Like almost like wonder and respect and honoring of your body, as opposed to being controlled by the external telling me I should look like this to be like that, to be successful, or to be a good mother, or whatever things we have attached to those versions of our body image. Is that have I understood you correctly?
Oh, absolutely. That's it.
Did you find around in phase 2, around 36 through 42, which is that danger zone area, that's the second danger zone, where we suddenly see it around day 35, 36, we see this scope and this context of, gosh, look what I lost. Look at the years I lost seeing myself in this way, the years of anorexia. There's this wisdom that we have gained access to through this work of tapping into our deep and unconscious up to this point of day 35. I mean, there's so much, because each day that you do the neurocycle, you're tapping deep and deep into your wisdom and seeing things with more perspective and clarity and reconceptualizing. And did you find that scope was exciting, but also a little bit scary, and that there was maybe a little bit of a drop off between 36 and 42 and then a climb? So almost like a sadness or an anxiety or even a bit of an extra depression, but it's different to where you started. Where you started, it was hopeless. Now at this point, I'm sad because of what I lost. I'm sad because I saw myself that way. Did you find that happening with yourself, and do you find that happening with your clients? And if so, could you give an example?
Yes. Yeah. So I always call it the 35 to 45. For me, that window, the 35 to 45, because, everybody's, it's everybody's different. And for me there is a heightened awareness. It really, you sometimes can't explain it. There's a heightened awareness, but it like you said, it's not debilitating.
Negative.
No, it's just like, wow, I didn't have to live that way. And I think that's where it is. It's like, I believe some lies that I didn't have to live that way. And I lost some things. But because of the tools that we're learning in the neurocycle, we don't stay that way. We go, I lost some things, but now I know how to deal with those things to come. And so it's an odd little mixture of and hope and
at the same time.
Yes. And a lot of times for my clients is I can almost, if I know that I have a client that's in this window, I should start writing it down and then show it to them, because I can almost tell you that they'll come in and they'll say, I'm on day 42, and they'll say, I made an appointment with my doctor because I think that I need to look at some things. Or, they'll say,
wow.
I signed up for the gym because I wanted to really take care of myself well. And so there's something that happens and shifts in that, where they feel it, again, that constructive and destructive worry that really kind of takes hold there, is they say, oh my gosh, this is a problem, but then they have the motivation to go and address it.
Oh, I love that. You explained that so well. So and you're seeing that consistently with your clients.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the last question I want to ask you is are you with your clients? Okay, it's a big question. This change that you saw, do you see people initially being like you were, okay, well, I've done this work? Because most people have done the first day. Yes, these are maybe not as specific as emotions, behaviors, because it's quite specific to gather awareness, which is part of the success of it. It's that whole plane taking off. It's very specific. It's very focused, and it makes you your awareness very focused. But it's and even as you reflect and as you recheck and as write down and recheck, as you do that, it's almost like people see that, hey, I've got this. People get that. People get that awareness of. I'm saying this so badly. People are pretty good at getting to that point, initiating the process. Then they're almost a little bit negative. I've done this before. I've maybe not so specifically, but I've done this kind of work. Do you see that? And then and they're almost like wary. Is this really going to work? It sounds similar to before. Yes, it's more organized and it's more specific. And then suddenly at day 7, there's a bit of a shift. And day 14, there's a shift. Day 21, there is something going on here. And by day 42, there's this insight. And day 63, they said, I didn't believe I could get here. Do you see that sort of pattern?
Yes.
With your clients, because you went through that. Did you see that with your? Okay, can you talk a little bit about that, or give an example, just as our rounding off statement for today?
Yes, that first day. Again, for a lot of my clients, they've gone through therapy. I mean, they've done all of the things. They have the calming app and they have this app and they've gone to yoga. And so they've tried all of these things and
Almost like Band-Aids,
yes,
Band-Aids. Yeah,
yes. And they're great for what they are.
absolutely.
They really are. But they come in saying, but I've done it all. I've done this. And they have this, it's not really a wall, but it is that they come in with. And also I'm a stranger to them, so they don't know who I am.
Yeah.
So there's a guardedness, but once we get into it and they realize this is different. This is different than therapy. This is different than yoga. This is different than breathing. It's really an all-encompassing healing.
So there's a shift. So they see the yoga and the meditation and the breathing, which is all because there's meditation in the little meditations in the brain preparation part. They see those all as techniques that they can still use, but they shift over. Do you find they shift over to realizing the neurocycle is a system of neuroplasticity? So in order for rewiring to actually take place, I have to put all of those things into the system. Do they start seeing things like the CBT techniques or the visualization or the things that they've done as parts of the toolbox that they can slot into the active reach a lot of the time or use to guide them in the recheck in terms of their thinking processes? So they don't have to throw them out the door, but they put them in the right place. And now they're not just because people are good. If you think of flying the plane, and the analogy of flying the plane, of you prepare the plane, which is all the meditation and breathing and stuff, and then you've got to take off. And that's all the awareness and that kind of thing. But then you've got to fly the plane and you've got to land the plane. If people are good at all the meditation, the preparation of the plane, people are good at taking off. But then people don't know how to fly, and that's the really hard work. That's your reflect, your recheck, it's your reflect and your right and your recheck. And then you've got to land the plane, and you've got to do this cyclically every day. You've got to drive the system every day. And it's most therapy, or what most people have been through, is that first part where they prepare, maybe a bit of taking off, and then the actual active reach, the technique. So yes, I've got this problem. Yes, I'm going to do some preparation. I know I've got an idea of the sort of route of where this is coming from, and it makes me feel bad. So I'm going to do this technique to deal with it. But they haven't done the processing in between, that flying. And so they crash, or they don't create sustainable change. Whereas this, now we're doing the whole, we're not just preparing, we're not just taking off, we're not just landing. We're actually going through the entire preparation, take off, fly, land, every day in many neurocycles till day 63, so that the habit can actually form. Do they see that benefit eventually? Because they don't see it at first.
Yes. I always use the analogy of the toolbox, and that it is tools, where we are learning how to rewire our brain. And then there are tools that we put in to sometimes just deal with everyday life. I mean, triggers happen. Even I always say this is not a silver bullet. This is not going to make your life magically be 100% problem free. Life happens, but how do we deal with it? And that's where the tools come in. And even as you are building those you're building neuroplasticity, you're building the new neural pathways, you can still use the tools for just life. Because the 10-second pause is not going to heal your mind. But when those triggers come in, when you have something that comes up that you can say, oh, yes, I have a tool that can help me and really help with the regulation piece of it so that I can continue that healing.
Love it. So the little techniques within the neurocycle, plus the techniques that they've already been doing, they recognize they can use those as active reaches, or they can use those as stopgaps in the day-to-day life. And also the neurocycle, that 5-step process, you can use in 30 seconds. If you're in a meeting and someone yells at you, you can quickly go through those 5 steps in your mind. The right step can be visualization. So do you find that they carry it over into their day-to-day life? Like me, I'm using the neurocycle all the time. As someone's talking to me, I'm processing through the neurocycle, because it's how we process. Do you find that generalization is happening with your patients?
Absolutely. Well, I had a client, one of my first clients, that we had a hurricane here in town, and her house was very badly damaged. And then we had another hurricane, and it damaged some more. And so she said that she walked into her house and it was completely flooded. And
oh my gosh.
And we had been working through the neurocycle, and she said, all I could do was say, think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose, think, feel, choose.
And she worked through the new.
Yes, because she knew there was nothing she could do. And she knew she had to stay calm for her family and for her to make these wise decisions. And all she kept saying was think, feel, choose. And she said, that's all I could say. I said, that's
wonderful.
That's
I think feel, choose actually was throwing you into that neurocycle process, which is an unconscious process of thinking. Okay, that's such a great example. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Last question. So just it's part of the previous question, but just to kind of summarize, are your patients, your clients, seeing the difference between just the technique that creating awareness and the technique of meditation or whatever, are they seeing that the neurocycle is the whole process, and that the more traditional methods are just the identification of the problem and a technique, awareness of the issue, and then jumping to the technique and missing out the middle part? Are they seeing that the neurocycle is taking them to the middle part as well, that they were missing a gap, that they were just doing the initial, like step 1 and step 5, but not doing steps 2, 3 and 4, even though they may not have thought of it like that? Are they seeing that distinction?
Yes.
That this is the whole cycle. This is the difference of the neurocycle.
Oh, yes. Because a lot of our clients, they've gone through therapy. And so the gather step, they get it. And they
the
know,
action.
Yeah. And they know how to do it. And then they have to go in and figure out how to behave differently. But for them to really see that it is a step-by-step process, and that, those 63 days really are doing something. And, I even tell them that even when you feel like it's not doing anything, there's still some things that are happening physiologically in the brain. And so that they really understand that this is valuable work. The whole process is valuable, not just the gathering and the action step, the whole process.
I love how you said that, and I love how you said they get told they find the problem and they start finding the root, and then there's a technique, but they've got to figure out how to put the two together. So, because the technique is the Band-Aid, but the wound is still there. They've got to figure out how to resolve and fix and that's where the whole process of the 5 steps, adding in those 3 steps in the middle, makes the difference, and doing it little by little every day. Christie, you've been amazing. Thank you so much. Is there any last pearl of wisdom that you'd like to share? We'll definitely have you back on again on a NeuroLive to dive deeper into more specific topics, because I know there's more things that have arisen with your clients, and we'll do more of these actual work. We'll work through actual neurocycles. This was more of a general overview for people to see how to work with a facilitator. Is there any last pearl of wisdom you'd like to share, and just remind people how they can find you if they want to do some extra facilitation while they're doing the neurocycle?
Yes. So one of the things I always tell my client is a quote from you. It says, and I'm going to mess it up now, where the mind goes, the body follows. And that is such a true statement, that it starts in the mind. Healing starts in the mind. I love that. And where can people find? Sorry, go ahead. Yes. And so my website is ChristieO'Brien.com, CHRISTIE. I always say that my mom spelled it the longest way she could, O'Brien.com. Fantastic. And they can also find you within the app. They can find your profile in the app, and they can find your profile on the Neurocycle Facilitator website, as well as our normal website too. So thank you, Christie, for joining me today and for all your wisdom. And I look forward to chatting again. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.